How to know if they truly love you. Mastering emotions in love. Have you ever loved someone so much that just one message from them could completely change your mood? When they text you gently, you feel alive again. When they become distant, you begin to feel anxious, confused, and start to withdraw. It's not because you're weak, but because you've placed so many emotions, expectations, and even your sense of self-worth on that person. You're not sure whether they truly love you, but one thing you know for certain is that you love them deeply. And because you love so much, you begin to fear that you're not enough, fear that they'll change, fear that one day they'll walk away without a word. You start trying to guess what they're thinking, analyzing every message, trying to stay okay so they won't find you too much. But have you noticed, the more you try, the more disconnected you feel, not just from them, but from yourself. True love doesn't make you overthink every day. It doesn't keep you stuck in a state of waiting. And most importantly, it never makes you question your own worth. This is the love equations, where you don't learn how to be loved more, but how to love the right way, from a place of wholeness within. If these words resonate with how you're feeling right now, hit follow. So every week, you receive a gentle, honest reminder that real love doesn't exhaust you. It brings you home to yourself. Part mot, nung do hiu qua sufutuak kam shuk. Ban luon langwoi guitin han jiao tian. You're the one who checks in, asks how they're doing. You tell yourself, I just want to care. I don't expect anything. But when they reply coldly or not at all, you start feeling like you're too much. You wonder, am I being too clingy? Or maybe I'm just not special enough. And still, you keep giving, not because you're tireless, but because you're afraid that if you stop, they'll leave. You no longer know how you truly feel because your mood rises and falls based on them. When they're happy, you breathe easy. When they go silent, you feel anxious. And just like that, it's as if your heart is no longer in your own hands. That's not love. That's emotional dependency. And real love, it can never be born from dependency. Part 2, the difference between true love and temporary attraction. At first, they seemed so caring. They texted you every day, asked how your day was going, told you how beautiful, sweet, and interesting you were. And you thought, finally, someone who really sees me. You opened your heart. You started hoping, trusting, believing. But just a few weeks later, their efforts started fading. They were still sweet when you needed something, but they were never there for what truly mattered. They didn't ask if you were really okay. They didn't stay when all you needed was a quiet hug instead of empty words. Their affection came quickly and quietly disappeared. And you started wondering, did they truly love me? Or was I just someone who showed up when they needed to fill a void? True love doesn't leave you guessing. It isn't impulsive. It doesn't rush. True love makes you feel seen, even when you're not trying to be anything but yourself. Part 3, reclaiming emotional balance. You don't need to read their mind, just stay rooted in yourself. Have you ever felt it? That sinking feeling when they see your message but don't reply, and suddenly your whole day feels off? You think you're okay, but just one cold or short response from them sends your mind spiraling. Did I say something wrong? Are they falling out of love? Is there someone else? You scroll back through your chats, trying to remember if they acted differently lately. And slowly you stop being yourself and turn into someone who lives on the edge of their moods. You smile when they're warm. You grow anxious when they're distant. You lie awake at night, wondering why they're not as caring today as they were yesterday. What you thought was deep love might just be emotional dependency. And no one ever taught you how to escape it. Because you can't control them, you try to control your emotions by figuring them out. You think, if I just understand what they're thinking, I'll feel safe again. But here's the truth. You've made someone else the center of your worth and peace, when that power was always meant to be yours. Emotional mastery doesn't mean you never feel sad, angry, or overwhelmed. It means you know how to pause and ask yourself, what am I really feeling right now? Is this worry truly about them, or is it a fear rooted inside me? Am I hurting myself just because they're not behaving the way I hoped? You can love someone, but don't let them become the switch that turns your happiness or sorrow on and off. You can care about their feelings, but you also need a grounded place to stand within your own emotional world. Because only when you stay anchored in yourself will you stop being swept around every time their mood shifts. And that is what makes you truly magnetic. Not because you're trying to be strong, but because you're no longer living based on how much someone else loves you. You're living from the depth of how much you've begun to love yourself. Part 4, the difference between being truly loved and being temporarily cared for. There are people who check on you every day, but don't truly love you. They text on time, ask how your day was, and even remember that you can't drink black coffee or hate raw onions. They make you feel noticed, cared for, and valued, but then you realize you only receive warmth when it's convenient for them. You're only understood when you don't ask for much. You're only kept around when you're easy, uncomplicated, and emotionally low maintenance. And one day when you truly need them, not because of drama, but simply because you feel emotionally fragile, they disappear. Not out of malice, but through silence. No more morning texts, no more "where are you?" or "what are you doing?" Temporary care always has limits. It might make you feel special for a few days, a few weeks, but it never makes you feel safe. On the other hand, someone who truly loves you might not always say the right things, do the right things, or be perfectly sweet all the time, but you'll always feel one thing clearly. They're there, even when you can't express what's going on inside. They don't only love you when you're happy, they love you when you're tired, lost, and emotionally closed off. They don't require you to be emotionally perfect in order to be loved. They love you through your flaws and never use them as a reason to withdraw their presence. The difference lies here. Someone who truly loves you makes you feel clearly who you are and allows you to be that person without needing to change in order to keep them. But someone who only offers temporary care makes you feel like you need to be softer, happier, or less sensitive just to be allowed to stay in their temporary space. Real love doesn't make you question your worth every day. It doesn't make you guess. It doesn't need you to constantly figure them out. It makes you feel like you can finally breathe, because you know they're not just there to fill a void. They're there because they truly want to stay. Part 5, a story of transformation. When she stopped trying to be loved, he finally started to see her. She was the kind of woman who always knew how to make others feel comfortable. She was gentle, a good listener, never complained, never made things difficult, never asked for much. He once told her she was the ideal girlfriend, and she believed that if she just kept being that way, love would be enough. But over time, she began to notice something different. Even though she was always there, he started showing up less and less. Even though she never blamed him, he gradually stopped even asking how she was. Even though she always kept the peace, her silence slowly became something he simply expected. One day she sat alone in their usual coffee shop, the one where she used to wait for him after work. She watched the crowds pass by, hands wrapped around a cup of cocoa that had gone cold, and one quiet but honest thought surfaced in her heart. I'm still here, but I'm no longer myself. I've tried so hard to be loved, but in return, I've slowly lost parts of who I am. That night, for the first time in months, she didn't send a good night text. Not out of anger, not as a silent protest, simply because she wanted to see what would happen when she stopped trying. The next day he texted, "Hey, are you okay? You weren't like yourself last night. Is something wrong?" No blame, no frustration, just curiosity. He had started to notice. A few days later, he asked her out to dinner. Not because it was date night, but because he genuinely wanted to know what she had been thinking, feeling. And for the first time in a long while, someone asked her, "Are you okay?" And this time, when she answered honestly, he didn't rush to fix it. He just listened. But the most memorable part wasn't that he came back, but what truly mattered was one quiet afternoon when she sat alone in the park and wrote these 3 lines in her journal. Today, I didn't check my phone every 5 minutes. Today, I stayed with myself and felt enough. Today, I didn't need someone else to validate me. From the moment she stopped needing others to make her feel worthy, she began to radiate a different kind of magnetism. Not from appearance, but from energy. She no longer gave in order to be kept. She gave because she was already full. And anyone, whether it was him or someone new, would now have to enter her life with awareness because she no longer entered love out of fear of loss, but from the light of someone who knows she's worthy. Part 6. Simple actions to regain emotional clarity in a relationship. Taking back control of your emotions doesn't require something grand. You don't need to meditate for hours, journal every night, or shut off your phone to disappear from someone's life. Sometimes what helps you regain your balance is simply a few small actions, just enough to shift your attention from constantly reacting to others to gently reconnecting with yourself. Before texting them, pause and ask your heart, am I reaching out because I truly want to connect or because I'm afraid they'll forget me? If the answer leans toward fear, take a deep breath and instead of texting them, send a kind message to yourself. Write down a simple line, hey love, I'm still here. You are not being left behind. You are worthy. Instead of waiting for their message, create a sweet little moment for yourself. It could be arranging a small vase of flowers, taking a walk without your phone, or listening to a song that once made you feel alive. When your emotions are no longer tied to a phone screen, you begin to reconnect with yourself. Write down 3 things you did well today that had nothing to do with them. They don't have to be big. They just have to be true. I chose silence when I really wanted to lash out. I made myself a cup of tea and sat still for 5 minutes. I didn't text, even though I missed them so much. Each of these small things is you gently reaching back to hold the hand of the inner child you once forgot while chasing someone else. Gently ask yourself, am I abandoning myself just to avoid being abandoned by someone else? This question isn't meant to blame, but to illuminate. When you see clearly, you no longer need to react. You'll begin to choose to stay with yourself before choosing to stay with anyone else. These small actions won't change the relationship overnight, but they will change your place in your own heart. And from that shift, you no longer need to control the other person. You only need to return to the power of your own energy. And that's when love begins to return to what's true. Gently ask yourself, am I abandoning myself just to avoid being abandoned by someone else? This question isn't meant to blame, but to illuminate. When you see clearly, you no longer need to react. You'll begin to choose to stay with yourself before choosing to stay with anyone else. These small actions won't change the relationship overnight, but they will change your place in your own heart. And from that shift, you no longer need to control the other person. You only need to return to the power of your own energy. And that's when love begins to return to what's true. Part 7. The grounded and whole version. True love doesn't arrive when you're striving to be enough. It doesn't come from reading someone's mood every day. Real love begins when you know your own worth, when you stop looking for someone else to make you happy, and instead you become the source of that happiness from within. When you're whole, you love fully. And you give not to receive, but because you already have so much within you to offer. If this message resonates with you, follow the love equations, where each video is a gentle reminder that no one can love you more deeply than you when you know how to stay with yourself.